away.
Welcome to episode 5 of The Greatest Ashes, inching in front. The Trent Bridge Test match, which is the 4th test of that 2005 series. I'm Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
And we'll take you through the moments from that epic match. And also you can watch it in video as well if you go to YouTube and Google the Analyst podcast. So England now still 1-1. So many close shaves in that Old Trafford test match, but still it's 1-1. So they've got to win at least one of the last 2 test matches to regain the Ashes. What chances do you think they had at Trent Bridge?
Well, it felt as though, although Australia celebrated the draw, and Michael Vaughan pointed it out, and you can hear about that on our previous episode, and that was a significant step for Australia because England controlled the match. They had them where they wanted them, and they could not quite force the victory. They ran out of time. Ponting played magnificently, and Australia were right to celebrate. It was kind of like a win for them. So on to Trent Bridge. But the point was England were in it, weren't they? England were in it, and those performances at Edgbaston, well, to some extent at Lords as well on the first day, but at Edgbaston and at Old Trafford, I think must have given them the confidence that they can compete and take on this Australian side and possibly even beat them. Okay, they beat them by only 2 runs at Edgbaston. It was such a tight victory. Could they find something convincing against this Australian side? Could they really take the game by the scruff of the neck and do something decisive against them? That's what they tried to do in this test match. But Freddie Flintoff was on his holidays again, yours.
Well, there was a gap between the 3rd and 4th tests, and so he took the opportunity to go to the south of France.
I went to Saint-Tropez, which was pleasant. Same sort of thing, get away for a few days because the Ashes, the excitement, and everyone knows who you are, so it was quite strange. So one of my friends was out there, Paul Beck, with his family, and he invited us to go over. He has a place out there, so David English jumped on board with us. He came, and it was great, to be honest, because the French know nothing about cricket and they're not interested. So it was a case of getting away for a few days, sitting by a swimming pool and just relaxing because the back-to-back test matches took it out of you.
Well, he was talking about the madness there. And there wasn't there, by this stage? It was, cricket, I don't think in my whole lifetime, 81 definitely, but perhaps not even to this level. I think because it was about the quality of the 2 teams, wasn't it? 81 was dramatic, the 81 series, where England had this incredible comeback. But the performances were sort of patchy in that series, and it wasn't the greatest England side, and it wasn't the greatest Australian side. There were great players in the 2 teams, but this was about top players at the peak of their games. Lots, Australian players, Warne and McGrath and Hayden and Ponting, playing magnificently. And England had those players as well. The likes of Simon Jones, who's at the peak of his powers. Freddie Flintoff, Michael Vaughan playing really well. The openers as well, Strauss and Ashley. And England's actually 4-man attack. I remember doing a chat with Tony Cozier the year before and saying to him, the great West Indian commentator, and saying to him, do you think England have got a chance in the Ashes next year? And he said yes, because they've got 4 fast bowlers, which was harking back to West Indies' era of dominance. And so they had that quartet that could spur them on.
Yeah, in fact, lots of the Australian players who played in that series said this is the best English attack they ever faced. Yeah. Those 4 fast bowlers, all slightly different, all had high pace apart from Matthew Hoggard, who obviously swung the ball. And in a way, it summed up the difference between the 2 sides, this particular game, because it was the old masters, as in Warne and McGrath, against the young thrusters, as in the 4 paceman attack of England. And the old masters, well, Warne was still very much a strong presence, but McGrath was now out of this test match with an elbow injury, and his opening partner, Jason Gillespie, who'd had less and less influence over the first 3 tests, he'd been dropped. So their crack spearhead opening attack was now carrying the drinks, McGrath and Gillespie, which is an extraordinary transformation from even, a few weeks before. So that really helped England. Of course, there was massive public interest now, as we've mentioned. Actually, I remember kids playing in the parks and even in the streets, which I hadn't seen really for a long time, probably if ever, actually. So, it just showed that the national consciousness had really got totally addicted to cricket practically. And Michael Vaughan thinks it was partly due to the fact that England were playing well and they were playing aggressively.
Usually when you go into a press conference as an England cricket captain, you know everyone. You walk in the room, you all say hello to everyone because you know who they are. They all write for the different papers or work for the different broadcasters, and you just can look around the room and see everyone's face. And whether I knew everyone's name, I knew everybody in the room generally. And I remember walking into the press conference at Trent Bridge and looked around and went, who is this? Who are these people? There was a new set of media that had arrived to cover the team and the series because it started to get so much attention, which was great. And then the crowd got behind that. The fact that we played aggressively and attacking. Again, I think, I look at Ben and Baz, what they're doing to Test cricket now is great because I think that when you arrive to watch this England side, you're going to be entertained. And that's what we tried to do in that series. We tried to arrive, we're going to play aggressively. So whether it works or it doesn't work, it's going to be worth watching because we're going to have a go. We're not going to suddenly go into our shells and play negatively. It's just not in any of the team's nature. We all had a natural way of being aggressive from pretty much 1 to 7 with the bat in hand and with the ball in hand. We didn't, I guess, Hoggard, you could ask him to bowl a few dots and Gilo, but Freddie, Steve, Harmison and Simon were just aggressive attacking bowlers, which was great. So I think the fans that were arriving and the people watching knew that we were that kind of side.
Well, Michael Vaughan won the toss again. England batted again and they scored over 400 again. Another good batting pitch. Strauss and Trescothick at the top of the order put on 100. Michael Vaughan made a half century.
Doesn't matter how quick the outfield is when you hit them like that. Lovely pull stroke from Andrew Strauss. Kasparovich dropping short. In the air, but past Hayden. Four more. This one a very solid stroke from Trescothick, all along the ground. And this might be the problem for Ponting as the day progresses, that Tate is a wicket taker, but also he's going to leak some boundaries.
There's placement and power.
Wonderful shot. This is exactly what England need.
Oh, hello. That's a fantastic strike.
What a way to get off the mark. First ball, crunch square of the wicket for 4. Who needs to play any games in between?
Another no ball, another 4 this time. This is a time when the captain has to think deeply and the bowler has to put his brain in gear. This is just as though he's driven out of Old Trafford, picked up his bat and walked out here.
Well, that's a beautiful stroke. It's the most delightful way to bring up your 50. He's very pleased with that. It's never easy when you stop and start because of bad weather. Some wonderful stroke playing that in.
Yeah, and huge danger signs for Australia. They missed him at Old Trafford early, dropped chance, and then he was bowled on a no ball. He was around 20 at the time. He went on to get 166. Well, they've already dropped him here in this innings, and now he goes to another Test match half century.
Well, Ponting has pulled it off.
Great moment for Ricky Ponting. Just a feather through to Adam Gilchrist from a ball that maybe moved away fractionally, but great joy for the Australian captain, who introduced himself to the attack and has dismissed his opposite number.
And this is where Freddie Flintoff played his best innings of the series. I mean, he had batted well. He'd made contributions at Edgbaston, 2 half-centuries. He'd made a contribution at Old Trafford as well. But this was a supreme innings.
Yeah, this was. And I think it was a very reassuring innings for him, partly because he always liked to see himself as a batsman who bowled. That's what he wanted to be in his dreams. But he was becoming a bowler who batted. And he was a very, very good bowler. And he was a pretty good batsman. But his batting had been, over the last probably 6 months or so, a little bit inferior to his bowling, which in a way is partly because his bowling had become so good. But now he was able to make a really proper statement with the bat, and he was inspired, a little bit at least, by Elton John.
Yeah, one of the things I do enjoy, I enjoy listening to music. It's one thing which relaxes me, and it takes you away from the job in hand almost. You can just chill out, sing a few songs, and I think the lads got fed up with Rocket Man, Elton John, by the end of the Test series. Because I'm bad on songs, I just play them and play them and play them and play them, and a few of the lads were getting a bit frustrated with it. Giles, he's got one of these iPods with all his music in, and you can buy attachments for the speakers. So that's always in the dressing room, and pretty much have free rein on it. So just play the songs I want to before you bat. You almost got an excuse.
Over Gully's head. There are all sorts of shouts of catch it, but it needed Joel Garner standing on Joel Garner's shoulders. It's a crashing shot. 250 up. They're all shouting for Freddie out there in the stands.
Oh, that's a great shot. Beautifully executed. Another good shot. Can't play a straight drive better than that either.
It's another no ball, and it's another boundary, the 25th no ball of the Australian innings, and the 14th for Andrew Flintoff.
And there it is. Watched it close, turned it to the onside easily, and that's his 5th Test match century, first against the Aussies. And he stands up and he's being counted in this series. What a superstar it's been with both bat and ball.
Simon Jones is one of the big talking points of this Test match, as we'll come on to in just a moment. But Geraint Jones also played a significant role in this game, making 85, England's wicketkeeper batter, and along with Andrew Flintoff put on a really significant partnership to nail down England's advantage of winning the toss on a good pitch.
Geraint Jones was an interesting cricketing character, actually. A good trivia question. Where was he born? And the answer is Papua New Guinea. Yeah, which actually have quite a good cricketing infrastructure there. There's a couple of good teams, actually, that play there, and they represent their country in World Cups and things. But he was brought up in Australia and then, had a bit of time in Wales. So he's quite a mixture of different influences and maybe an unspoken, quite quietly spoken character. But he played a fine innings here. He he got his bit between his teeth when he batted well. He does lovely, stylish back foot shots, cuts and pulls and so on. And he kept Freddie company in that excellent stand.
So Flintoff made 102, Jones 85, England 477. So those runs in the bank, as they were at Old Trafford, as they were at Edgbaston. Now, in those two matches, Australia conceded a first innings lead, but they managed to narrow it. In this match, they did not. England took a really punishing first innings lead thanks to Simon Jones.
Given it, he said that the ball hit Ponting on the pad before it hit the bat, and Simon Jones with the one that darts back at the right-hander has claimed the second wicket.
Yeah, he's definitely going on to hit the stumps, but it's whether he nicked it. His impression he gave when he went off is that he nicked it. It doesn't make any difference. The umpire has given him out.
But while he was making progress with the ball, taking wickets, and also there was that brilliant catch from Andrew Strauss to get rid of Adam Gilchrist.
Full length, diving away to his left, and he's plucked one out of the air to get rid of Adam Gilchrist.
Well, when you're hot, you're hot. It's all running England's way.
There was something else sort of coming into view for England, which was
twist in the tail.
Another twist in the tail, which was an injury.
It was the first opportunity I'd had that summer to kind of show my skills with conventional swing.
That was a beauty.
Because the outfield was so lush, the square was fairly lush as well. So reverse swing was out until the fourth, fifth day, really. So I could give him a ball and I let one go and I thought, oh, that's nice. That's swung beautifully. So I thought, right, I'm in the game here. And it was a great feeling in the sense that, right, I've been labelled as a bit of a one-trick pony. Just give him the old ball and let him go was fine. So there's to kind of prove to people that I could do that was a good feeling for me personally. But I was struggling with my ankle big time as well. So I was thinking, I think I've got much left in me in this series, really.
Is this out? Yes! What a good catch. Simon Jones finishes with a 5-wicket haul.
So on a thrilling Saturday, Jones finished with 5 for 44. Australia were bowled out for 218. England had a first innings lead of 259. I mean, you think of the previous 18 years, I mean, that was untold riches, wasn't it? A first innings lead of 259. You are banging control of that test match. You are absolutely defining its destiny with a lead of 259. You cannot lose with a lead of 259, can you? Unless you enforce the follow-on.
Follow-ons are a favourite subject of yours, aren't they?
Well, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of enforcing the follow-on. As long as you've got time left in the game and the weather forecast is good, and weather forecasts are much better now, so you can rely on them a bit more. It's better just to get a 500 lead, say, go on, chase that, and then crush the opposition and say, thanks very much for coming. That's the way, I think the best way to do it. It doesn't risk a team coming back from the dead and overtaking you and then making it difficult for you in your fourth innings. But in this case, England had this big lead. They were on top of Australia, weren't they? I mean, they really had a feel at this point that they were on top and Australia were down. Good that though Australia were. And a 259-run lead. And England's bowling attack as well was working really well in tandem. Those 4 pace bowlers, Ashley Giles, had to back them up as well. So it didn't feel that much of a risk, did it? I mean, I think sometimes if you enforce a follow-on, you've got a lead of 200, just over 200. You've been in the field for a long time. It's slightly different, but when you haven't been in the field for that long and you've got a lead of, close on 260, you've got a bit of latitude to do it, especially when your bowlers are on top. The only problem was, of course, is that when England enforced the follow-on, there was no Simon Jones in their attack. So suddenly they were down to 3 pace bowlers. So what happened there then? How was that knock? If I were a captain in that situation, then I don't think I would enforce the follow-on. Having said that, I think the weather forecast was a little bit iffy, wasn't it, for the final day of the game? So I think that was a potential factor as well.
I think it's also partly due to what time of day it is. If it's sort of early in the day or early-ish in the day to enforce the follow-on,
which it was in this case,
you might as well do it. If it's late on in the day and your bowlers are absolutely knackered, then you probably might bat again instead. You're right, Jones wasn't there, and in fact, maybe that was quite important because he was off the field having treatment when Vaughan brought the bowlers and the fielders and the team together and said, right, guys, are we going to enforce the follow-on? And everyone put their hand up and said yes. Yeah. Jones wasn't there. He might have said no because he probably knew that he wasn't going to play much of a further part in the game.
Yeah, it does seem strange because you think that would be communicated out to the middle. But it was a statement as well, wasn't it? You know, we can make Australia follow on, and it's not just 200 behind, it's 259 runs behind. But, you know, we know with these Australian teams, you know, we saw it at Edgbaston, we saw it at Lords, we saw it at Old Trafford, actually. In all three of the games, you think you've got them somewhere and they wriggle out and they fight back and they make it really difficult. And absolutely the same thing happened in this test match as well. Australia fought like mad. So they got to 261 for 4. There were half centuries for Langer, for Clark and for Katic. But there wasn't a half century for Ricky Ponting, was there? When we think of cricket history, we think of great balls and great innings and great matches. We rarely think of famous run-outs, but this was in this match was probably the most famous run-out that I can think of. Anyway, I mean, there have been one or two controversial ones, haven't there?
When you were on commentary, actually, 1999 World Cup semi-final.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Australia-South Africa,
Yeah.
when Alan Donald was run out with tying the semi-final, and it sort of started the South Africans as chokers for the next 20-odd years or so. So that was a famous one. But this one, too, was a classic. And it was brought about, really. It was Ricky Ponting being run out by Gary Pratt, the 12th man, who'd been travelling around with England, partly because he was a good fielder and partly because he was a good lad. But I suppose the other dynamic to it was that England were quite keen on their hydration. And so, you know, they were taking lots of fluids on board, which is quite right for bowlers especially, and then running off the field.
When you say hydration, good hydration, you mean that not bad hydration?
That was a Beach Boys track, wasn't it? Good hydration. No, it was. I suppose it had brought it. You know, the more that you had fitness trainers part of the entourage and so on, the more they encouraged lots of fluid intake for bowlers especially. And so England were big into that, which meant quite often after a bowling spell, the player would leave the field either to have a quick toilet break or as well change their shirt. And this is something they did a lot. And they would make sure they brought on, rather than what often happens in Test cricket, is just using a local lad as the 12th man, which England still do actually quite often, somebody from the academy or somebody from the second 11, which seems a bit odd to use a very inexperienced cricketer as a key fielder in a Test match. But England recognised the value of a good 12th man, both on and off the field. So Gary Pratt had the job, and he had the chance of running Ricky Ponting out from cover point. And he did it very, very brilliantly.
Quick. Oh, he's gone, I think. Well, what a pick-up and throw.
What a pick-up and throw. Gary Pratt, Ponting was really struggling. Now, Alim Dar nodded as if he thought it was out, but he has asked for the opinion of the third umpire. Damien Martin calls it. Ponting really has to go here. He's ball watching. Oh, he's well gone. That is a gigantic moment, not just in the day or in the game, but maybe in the series.
Ricky had a ding-dong with Duncan Fletcher for the run-out of Gary Pratt. That made me chuckle. Yeah, he didn't like us replacing our fielders with Gary Pratt every now and again. But Simon was injured. He'd gone off for a long time. He never played for England again. So on that occasion, we were acting in a fair way.
We weren't breaking any rules. The Australians could have done it as well. I'm sure they did at times. You had a time limit of 2 overs, I think it was, to get back on the field. But that in that instance, when Gary Pratt went on, I was on my way to hospital to have my ankle scanned. So it was legitimate. And I think obviously Ponting's kicked off. He's picked the wrong one to have a go at in Fletch, because Fletch was never going to give him a reaction. But, you know, Gary had been brought into the squad as our kind of super 12th man, because he was a great fielder. He was a good lad to be around the lads. He had a bit of banter. He was a proper Geordie. He was just a good person to have around. He had that young person energy, which was good for the older guys in the side as well. So he was the perfect 12th man, and he loved just travelling around with us and experiencing what we were experiencing. And so then obviously Ponting's been run out. Great bit of fielding by Gary, by the way. the angle he threw out, you only had one stump to aim for. So it was a great bit of fielding. But then obviously as Ponting's walking off, he's looking up, isn't he, to our dressing room, and he's having a go at Fletch, and Fletch gave him nothing. Absolutely nothing. He had his shades on, was just smiling at him. It's the first time I've seen Fletch smile all summer. Or ever.
Ponting out for 48. Australia were 155 for 2. That made it 155 for 3. But Australia was showing that sort of that cockroach attitude again, weren't they? They weren't just succumbing. They succumbed in the first innings. They were not succumbing in the second innings. They were fighting hard. But Ricky Ponting's reaction was to, well, did he take it well?
Does he ever take anything disappointing well? He was apoplectic, but he picked on the wrong victim or the wrong target, didn't he, with Duncan Fletcher? Because Mr. Inscrutable, behind his dark glasses, never betrayed any emotion. Actually, I love the story Duncan told recently of he's got this fascination now with bird watching in South Africa, and he goes round distant, quite remote parts of South Africa photographing rare birds, rare tropical birds. And on one occasion he was doing that, and 4 wild dog appeared from somewhere who are seriously dangerous, and he just was inscrutable. And the wild dog were probably like Ricky Ponting, kind of, baring their teeth and snarling at him, and he just stayed there, stayed put, didn't get too flustered, and eventually they ran off. So did Ponting.
Yeah, well, he didn't have any choice, did he, really? Because he'd been given out. He was off the field and, effectively out of the game. But Australia still kept on going. So I mentioned they were 261 for 4 before they lost their 5th wicket. So they were ahead, still with 6 wickets in hand. And you think, well, if England have to chase 150, 200, 250 here, they could be in big trouble. They kept on going, Australia. England, though, eventually bowled them out for 387, leaving them a seemingly straightforward task of scoring 129 to win the match and go 2-1 up in the series with 1 to play. Was it straightforward?
Well, in actual fact, Australia helped England's cause initially by opening the bowling with the 2 fastest bowlers, and England got a quick 30-odd runs for the first wicket. Yeah. After 4 overs, before Shane Warne was introduced.
Oh, that is glorious. What a shot. That one has gone literally through Michael Clarke.
If Shane Warne's going to have to come on now, then Ricky Ponting's obviously not happy with his seamers.
As soon as Warne was introduced, things changed dramatically.
Gone! I reckon that's about pat it is. The first one for Australia and the first ball from Shane Warne.
Michael Vaughan was dismissed for a duck.
That's great bowling. Fantastic cricketer this guy is.
And then Andrew Strauss had been playing well, but Shane Warne tried again to get into his head.
Yeah. So again, it was halfway through the over, and just out of nowhere, Warney just stopped the game and went, Straussy, I just want to let you know, mate, I'm going to get you out this ball, okay? This ball, I'm getting you out. And he turned to the umpires and said, Umps, did you hear that? I'm getting him out this ball, and, created a bit of theatre for himself. And, my reaction was like, whatever, I'm just going to face the delivery. But I remember tapping my bat on the ground going, what do I do here? Because my instinct actually when he said that was, well, I'm going to slog sweep him and hit him for 4 and then show him, just show him that I'm up for it and that I'm not going to cower away if he says that. And then I thought, no, but hold on, that's kind of what he's trying to get me to do here, and I'll look like a complete idiot if that doesn't come off. So I'm just going to defend the ball. And then I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? He's got me. He's completely got me here. All I'm thinking about is how I'm going to play this delivery rather than just watching the ball. And anyway, so I just as he was about to deliver it, I was just like, watch the ball. And thankfully, he didn't get me out that delivery. But there was so much relief. I felt so relieved for not getting out that ball that perhaps I lost my concentration. And about an over later, he did get me out.
He's got him. I think there was a little edge on that one.
So again, he had the last laugh on that one. But I don't think I ever would have lived it down if I had actually got out that ball. That would have been the ultimate humiliation.
So England got to 57 for 2 when Vaughan did get Strauss. Then it was 57 for 4. Then England got to 103 for 4. Surely they were going to canter home to victory. Remember, they needed 129 to win. They were 103 for 4. Peterson was out. 103 for 5. Flintoff was out.
Ball in. Great delivery. Wonderful bowling. The stumps are down. Brett Lee has made the breakthrough. He's got the man out that really could win this quickly.
He knows that could be the one that could win this test match for Australia.
111 for 6. Geraint Jones was out, hitting down the ground. It was one of those shots. Everyone went, why did he do that?
This is all over. That's it. Another down. The pressure has got to Geraint Jones.
116 for 7. They needed 129 to win, so they still needed 13 runs with 3 wickets left and not a particularly strong tail. And this, remember, from a position in which England led on first innings by 259. How on earth did this happen? How on earth did Australia get themselves back into this sort of position in the game? They were totally out of it, but suddenly they were right back in it.
Well, they had Brett Lee bowling rockets at one end and Shane Warne tantalising, teasing and tormenting the batsman at the other end. And it emphasised Australia's reputation, and I described it as a bit like an octopus, in that they've got tentacles all round that Ashes urn, and you've got to prise those tentacles off one after the other, and those little suckers are still clinging on. The last couple of tentacles are still clinging on to that urn and have to somehow be removed for England to take a lead in the series.
Well, it feels like you remove one, though, and then get to the next one. The other one goes back on again. It's a bit like that against them, because they were such a good side. What was it like in that England dressing room? What was it like on the balcony? Andrew Strauss says no one was moving.
I think there was that horrible feeling of, this could be a massive choke here. I certainly remember when Geraint Jones went down the wicket and tried to hit Warne over the top and he got caught. Just felt the momentum was with Australia and he was going to sort of, magically just run through the tail. But yeah, there were a couple of crucial boundaries scored by Hoggard and Giles, and you just sort of got to the stage where you were like, actually, we only need a handful of runs, and we got 3 wickets in hand, so we're probably going to do this. But but it was incredibly tense, unbelievably tense, and like all these things, when you've got no control over it and you're just a spectator, it's 10 times worse.
So no one was moving, and Freddie, absolutely nervous wreck.
Which you wouldn't imagine, would you? But his nails were chewed to the quick. He was striding up and down. He was absolutely restless.
And the other point here, of course, is that Simon Jones, who was effectively out of the game because he had this ankle injury, suddenly he was ready to bat. He had to pad up and was ready to bat.
Me and Harmy were looking at each other, and I said, look, Harm, you're going to be able to get down the stairs far quicker than me. You're going to have to go, pal. And then I'll go out as number 11 if needed. So my plan was, if Harmy got out, I'd have followed him down the stairs. And literally, he wouldn't have made him feel very good. But I would have followed him down the stairs, and then I would have sat near to where I would have had to walk out where the fans are and the supporters. That was my plan. But then, watching Hoggy and Gilo bat Fred, I've never seen Fred as nervous, ever. He was just pacing round. He was going up the stairs into where the showers were and stuff, and he just couldn't sit still, and he was just biting his nails. He looked like a kid that was going to see the headmaster. He looked terrified. And I was kind of thinking, right, I just hope to God I'm not needed or Harmy, because this is yeah, this is end of engine stuff here.
So two unreal things happened really at the end of that game. One was Matthew Hoggard unfurled an extra cover drive off a 90-mile delivery from Brett Lee, and it went to the boundary. And Matthew Hoggard had, you could write his number of attacking strokes on the back of a matchbox with space to spare, and he managed to rifle a Brett Lee Thunderbolt through extra cover for 4.
8 to win.
Good shot. Full toss, meant to be a Yorker, and no one can save that. Forward to Hoggard.
And 4 more to win.
You get 2 for that. That's a great over for Matthew Hoggard in England. He's played that over with great common sense and ability.
And then Ashley Giles, who'd been absolutely clueless against Shane Warne in earlier matches, managed to survive a couple of really teasing overs, and then finally, with 2 to win, just nudge it into a gap on the leg side for the winning runs.
And that's it. Those are the winning runs for England in this 4th Test match at Trent Bridge. England go to a 2-1 lead in the series, and Australia now must win at the Oval if they're to retain the Ashes.
You finally got the shot away to mid-wicket. So can you remember that feeling?
4th ball that I hit, I middled, and I thought that was it. When I hit it, I thought that's it. And that's the ball where Vaughan jumped up on the balcony and then fell over because it hit Katic right in the middle of the pads at short leg and didn't go anywhere. And everyone went, oh, and then, no. And there was a bit of noise around the bat, a bit of laughter, not from Ponting at a silly point. He was stone cold.
Yeah.
I remember going down to Hoggy and saying, right, next ball, we had 2 balls left. I'll see the over out. We need 2 to win. We'll get them off Brett Lee. Pace on the ball, we'll get them. And the next ball, I threw my hands at one that Warne held out wide, and it was just that little floaty thing back in towards the stumps. How it missed off stump, no idea at all, but missed it. And then he bowled another one, sort of just full towards the stumps that I leant on. Never timed one so well off Warne. And missed short leg this time and went through the field, and that was it. And at that point, you go from almost the 2 bowlers and me and Hoggy and the umpires almost in this game. And then as soon as you hit those winning runs, it's like the volume turns up. It's like someone just rolls the volume like that, and all this noise floods in at the ground. And the most incredible sound. And Hoggy reminds me of this as he walked off, because Hoggy and I were, I suppose, 2 of the lower key players in that team, And as he walked off, I said to Hoggy, just for one night, mate, we're kings. And we quite enjoyed that moment together.
And this outpouring of exultation, emotion, relief, disbelief from all the England balcony that they'd gone 2-1 up in the series.
Yeah, I wonder how much. What was the balance between sort of feeling of triumph and relief? Because actually, England they controlled the game for such a long part of it. You almost felt they deserved to win by 8 wickets or something like that, or 9 wickets. But such was the sense of belief from this Australian side, such was the quality in it, the brilliance of Shane Warne to bowl them back in with a chance. England had to settle for a narrow victory. Look, a narrow victory is good enough, isn't it? 1 run, 2 runs at Edgbaston, or 1 wicket, would have been enough. As it was 2 runs and 3 wickets. It showed actually ultimately how close the series was, how hard fought it was, how much of an arm wrestle it was. England got there. They were 2-1 up with 1 to play,
and there were nearly 9 million people estimated to be watching that by this stage. It was a Sunday night, so it was peak audience. So obviously the Channel 4 executives were delighted by that. And encapsulated how the nation had been captivated by this series was a story from a parishioner from Stamford in Suffolk. who'd been attending Evensong that night and was listening to the radio, the commentary on TMS, on a little portable radio with an earpiece. And she walked into the church with England 116 for 7, clearly on the verge of losing. And the organist was obviously listening to the match as well, because he was playing this funereal sort of march as people walked into the church. And then when, as the lady was listening, England won the match and Giles hit the winning runs, the organist broke into the Hallelujah chorus. A wonderful email that we got from her, which I think just said it all about the way the nation was living every moment with the team.
Yeah, it was an astonishing game of cricket that had a nerve-wracking conclusion. There probably were a few church organists playing Hallelujah as well, but quite a few people singing it as well as they watched the television, listened to the radio, moved away from Trent Bridge that night, because England were in sight, weren't they? They were in sight of regaining the Ashes.
But, as Richie Benno cleverly warned at the end of the commentary, they still hadn't done it, because if Australia won the final test, it was 2-2, and Australia would retain the Ashes. So it was still all in the balance. And we'll find out what happens in the climax in our final episode.
Here we go. Oh, has he got him? A bigger pin, not out, hit him on the arm. They're all in the air, the Aussies reckon they had him. Peterson stood his ground.
Oh dear, let's have a close look here. Shoulder, fantastic decision from Billy Bowden. He gets it right. The Australians were always going to go up because the gloves were close. Everything was close, but Billy Bowden has got that exactly right.